Hey there, Mitch with Rideshare Dashboard, and I want to talk to you a bit about AB5. So, a lot of people have been pushing for AB5 and a lot of people are against it. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you, I'm against it. Now, I get that we want to protect our rights and we want to get paid fairly. And I'm going to talk about what I think the minimum standard should be. And I again said minimum standard should be. Not what's reasonable, but just enough to cut even and actually be able to pay your bills and survive. Now, if you want to be able to have time to go out with your family, date night, put money away into savings, those are different numbers. This is a very minimum amount. And I'm going to talk about that first. I'm going to talk to you about what the rider would pay. And I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about how the numbers would work out on this. And sorry if my math isn't up to par, but yeah, it's a lot of numbers. So, and then I'm going to talk to you about the AB5 and why I think it's a bad idea. So, here's what I feel that the federal minimum would be. And now this doesn't take in the state. Every state would have to obviously set their own minimum, but the minimum federal standard just to be able to cut even, in my personal opinion, would look like this on the pay rate card. In an urban environment, which would be things like Eau Claire, Warren, Youngstown, try to think of some other places. I guess, you know, places like I wouldn't say Woodbury, but Cedar Falls, different places like that would be able to fall under urban. Base pay would be $1.50. Then at a surge, you'd get $1 extra to that base price. So then you'd pay $2.50 for a surge. 75 cents per mile. Plus, if you're on a surge, you get an extra 25 on top of that. So that's again minimum. So you would get 75 plus 25 cents for a surge. Then you get 20 cents per minute while the passenger's in your car. When there's no passenger in your car, you would get a strict 25 cents per mile to go to the pickup. Minimum fare is $4.50. The maximum pickup fee that you would get paid out would be $3. So that's based on 15 miles. I believe it was 15 miles. No, I think it was 12 miles. So then if you're in a metro area, think Minneapolis, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, places like that, $2.50 base fare plus $1 during surge, 85 cents minimum. Plus, you get a 50 cents per mile surge. So you get 85 plus 50 per mile during a surge. Still 20 cents per minute. Pickup fee is still 25 cents a mile. Minimum fare would be $5 payout. And so even if they only go 2 miles, you're still going to get at least $5 no matter what. And the max pickup fee would be $4. And I will try to insert this here into the video as well, so bear with me on that. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. These are some really low numbers, but here's how it would work. I'd have 3 tiers set up as well. So you have tier 1, 2, and 3, each giving you an extra 10 cents a mile. So in an urban, you'd have the potential to make about $1.05, and in a metro, you can make up to $1.15 per mile. 85% acceptance rate, 4.5 rating, and you have to do 50 rides a week. You hit all 3 of those every 30 days, you're able to move up into the next tier. So you go to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Now, if you miss one for a month, if you're in tier 3 and you miss it for that month, then you would drop down to tier 2. You miss it again, you drop down to tier 1. But if you drop down from 3 to 2, the next month you could just go back from 2 to 3. So there's nothing here that's necessarily stopping you from being able to make it. But for those that want to do this full time, the idea behind it is getting you on the road. But the more experienced you are, the more you can make. So now, what would the riders pay? Here's what the riders would pay. $1.50 in a urban. We're gonna go through the urban numbers. $1.50 base. That goes to the driver. The base goes to the driver. The base surge would be $1. So again, you know, you're getting paid $1, you're making $1. They're paying $1.50, they're making $1. So that base price just basically goes straight to the driver. Then you have the per mile. the per mile for the driver would be $1.25 in a metro. So I probably didn't even account for that. Yeah, so I'm a little off on my numbers here, but I was looking at $1.25 for. Oh nope, never mind, I lied. So $1.25 is what they would pay. That means for every mile driven, rideshare companies would only make 20 cents a mile. Only 20 cents. No matter what. Because then that 25 cents you get extra for the surge, the rider pays that during a surge. So the rideshare company still only makes 20 cents. Then they're paying the 20 cents a minute for the time, and the pickup is 25 cents. They're charged for that. The minimum fare is $4.50, and then $3 max pickup fee. So again, the drivers, basically the only amount extra that the drivers are paying is 20 cents. Now, yes, the rideshare companies will make a bit more. If you're only making 75 cents, they are making a bit more off of that because they're still only paying $1.25. But there's consistency in the pricing. Now, in a metro, it's the same concept, only instead of paying the 25 cents for a surge mile, you're paying the 50 cents that you get in the metro and so forth. So again, they're still only making 25 cents per mile when you're making your max amount. So how does that all work out? Well, if we do a 10-mile ride at 15 minutes with a 3-mile pickup, I figured it out. In an urban environment, you'd make $12.75. But if it's a surge, you get $16.25. Not counting, you'd get an extra $1 for tier 1, extra $2 for tier 3, and an extra $3 for tier 3. Or tier 2, and then tier 3. So, standard rate, no surge, $12.75, plus you're in tier 3, so you're now $12.75 is now $15.75 for that 10 miles, plus the 3 minutes, and then obviously the time is in there as well. So that's where it all comes into play. Same situation with the metro. Now what I figured out here is for your $12.75 standard ride, the rider would have paid $17.75. That means they made $5 off that 10-mile ride. Now, if we take that at 100,000 rides a day, 5 times 100,000 is $500,000 a day. Trust me, these companies are doing way more than $100,000 or 100,000 rides a day. But this is giving you some numbers to kind of think about. That being said, the riders are really not paying too much more than what we make, but there's consistency in the numbers. So, what though would help you increase your business? What would help increase your ability to make more money? Well, I'm looking at 5 features that need to be added to the app, hands down. The first one is favorites. They need to add a favorite. Now, the way the favorites would work is simply this. If a rider rates you, and after they're done rating you, they can click on a favorite. What that does is if you're online next time, they will prioritize you to pick that rider up, providing you're available. So even if you're a little bit further away, so let's say you're 10 miles away, but there's a driver who's only 3 miles away, it'll let the rider know, closest driver is 3, would you still like to notify your favorite? And if they want you to come pick them up, now it doesn't tell them that you're online, it doesn't tell them you're offline, but if you're online, you'll get the opportunity to accept that, and then it would queue up for you. However, if you decline it, it'll just say rider unavailable. And the thing about that is that it doesn't tell them if you're online or not, it just prioritizes you to have that opportunity. But you could also favorite riders. After you've driven that rider at least 3 times, you'd have the opportunity to favorite them. that would connect you guys as a priority ride. So if they want, if you're online and you're willing to go out of your way for them, it'll let you know. Or if you're in the area and within, like, say 5 miles, it'll prioritize you over other drivers to be able to pick them up. Now, again, there is some workout that need to be done with that was logistically, but the idea is that the rider doesn't know whether you accept or decline. They don't know if you're online or not, because there may be a time where you're like, oh man, I got to go home and sleep, or I've got to get the kids ready for school, and you need to log off, and then all of a sudden you upset a rider because you declined the ride. So they don't know. It's a blind system, but it just gives a priority within the app to offer you that ride should you want it. Next thing I would do are hot zones. Now, instead of having surges, I would create what I would call hot zones. More or less, let's say you have at least a 3-to-1. So you have 3 riders for every 1 driver. That would institute a hot zone. That hot zone would be a 3x3 square or circle or whatever you want to do of that area in urban areas, and 5 miles in metro areas. And then instead of having a surge where all of a sudden there's enough drivers it disappears, it would come up on your app and it would just be a circle area and it just say 10 p.m. So at 9 p.m. that surge started, or that hot zone was created because there weren't enough drivers. Then what that 10 p.m. means is that at 10 p.m. it expires. So it doesn't matter if you have 20 drivers and 3 riders for at least that hour, because it would only be 1 hour long, you would be guaranteed to get that surge price, which in an urban would be 25 cents and 50 cents in a metro. Now, if at 10 p.m. you still don't have enough drivers, it would extend another hour. And that way, people that are coming into that area do have the opportunity to not necessarily just show up and it's gone and you lose all that money. There's at least a little bit of incentive for coming in. And that's what I would do for hot zones, which really, isn't a big deal because, here's the thing. That extra pricing is just being paid for by the rider anyways. So, appeal process. I really feel that a rideshare company should institute an appeal process. If you're accused of something, you should be able to have the right to appeal your deactivation. Now, that being said, there's some thoughts about how this can go, and I'd love to hear, and any of this information I'm putting out, comment below what you think. I want your opinions on what you would do. But the appeal process would go like this. Somebody accuses you of sexual misconduct, for example. They have 48 hours to file a police report, so it's got to be dated within 48 hours, and then it's got to be filed within a total of 72 hours of the incident. That's what the rider has. Now, they can deactivate you right away. However, if you call customer service, you're saying, what's going on? Why was I deactivated? They say, well, there's a report of sexual misconduct. Okay, when did it happen? Well, it was the rider was about 2 hours ago. Okay, well, do you have the time and date? I've got a dash cam. You should be able to send that dash cam in. There should be a 24/7 hour support where you can provide that video. They can go through it and they can say, okay, well, you know what? We're going to do a pending reactivation. We're going to reactivate you. Will they still continue to investigate because you proved that nothing happened in your car? You didn't get out of the car. You didn't say nothing, blah, blah, blah. And this is where I say that everybody should have a dash cam anyways, because then when the police come rolling up and if say she did file a police report or he filed a police report, all of a sudden you can say, hey, you know what? I've got a video here. This was the ride. This is what happened. I never even got out of the car. And I don't know why, blah, blah, blah. So now that being said, to discourage riders from even making false report, if a report is said to be false that leads into deactivation, the riders could be fined. They could be fined up to a maximum of $300 and possibly face legal issues, criminal issues, for filing a false police report. Now, if they do not file a police report and the accusation that they accuse you of is criminal, then the deactivation does nothing. So there's kind of two ends here. First, if somebody does do something illegal, you are going to be criminally punished. And second, if they don't file a police report because they just wanted a free ride and they're afraid of getting charged, you at least have that ability to say, hey, they didn't file a police report within 3 days. I guess I'm ready to go back on the road. And they're going to be charged at $300 for your lost wages. So, like I said, appeal process. Available 24/7. But once you're deactivated, you've only got 48 hours to submit a inquiry. So, driver protection. This kind of goes into the next one too, but I feel there needs to be, and that's where I say it needs to be more done with driver protection. So in that, that's kind of more of the outline of the appeal process, doing more to protect the driver from lost wages because of an incident, things like that. So if somebody pukes in your car, if you could take pictures and you have a dash cam video of them doing it, there's no reason they can't charge them immediately and you get your money. I'd like to see them offer legal assistance through the Rideshare app as well. And in that case, if they offer legal assistance, there's no reason that they can't collect the legal fees. So if somebody does falsely accuse you and the Rideshare company pays for an attorney to come down and defend you in a court of law, then as an attorney they can not only clear your name but turn around and ask the judge or create a civil suit that forces restitution from the individual filing a false report. So there is that. So again, better driver protection, because it's not fair that we have to sit there and wonder every day if we're going to get deactivated because of a false accusation. And finally, rider picture ID and name. So what I mean by that is some riders will put fake names in there and they can just create a new email, blah, blah, blah. But I feel that when you sign up with the Rideshare company, you have to provide your name, date of birth, and social security number, which we don't get. Obviously, we're not going to get their date of birth and social security number. We don't need that information. But riders have to upload a picture of them, as well as upload their real name, which will have to match what comes up with their social security number, date of birth. So if their name comes up as Timmy Jones, then on our app it needs to say Timmy, not T-Dog. I mean, I've had somebody put their name up there. When I picked them up, it was like their name was like Daddy. I've seen people named Cookie and just all kinds of ridiculous names. Oh, I'm Diamond, or I'm Princess. And I'm not saying that some people don't have those names, but the amount of times that it comes up, it's ridiculous that I mean, how am I supposed to do that? If somebody sat there and starts going off in my car and they punch me and I have to call the police, well, do you know who this person is? Oh yeah, that's Diamond. Do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like I picked up a prostitute. That's what it sounds like. So they should have their real name on the app, not their phone name, but give me their first name, and their picture needs to be uploaded, because if an incident happens, we need to do something legally. That information should be able to be backtracked, and by having their social security number, their credit card, and the date of birth when they register, that connects their account. So if for some reason they are deactivated as a rider, they can't just create another account, because if they put their social in and create a new account, it can come up with something like, this social security number has been blacklisted or blocked or blah, blah, blah. But that's where it comes also with driver protection. So again, this is designed to protect drivers. People are less likely to do something crazy if they can be connected right back to it. So now, AB5. Let's talk about the AB5. What exactly can you expect with this? Well, first let me go ahead and read what we got here. An employee under AB5 is basically defined by using an ABC process. A, the person is free from the control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of the work and in fact. Okay, well, under that, we're an employee. We have no control or free direction. We can't do what we want because our rideshare platforms forcibly put rules and restrictions on us. So if I could carry a firearm, which I don't, but if I could, that would be my free choice. If I wanted to put car advertisements on the side of my vehicle, well, you know what? The rideshare platforms prohibit commercial branding on the outside of your vehicle and some on the inside. So again, we don't have that freedom. The person performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. So that's a gray area. On one end, let's just take Rides. We're going to call a company Rides. That's just what we're going to call it. So Rides created this app, and what it does is it connects drivers and riders. Well, that being said, their business is technology based. All they do is create the app. They don't, they process the transactions and everything. It's an app for people to sign up as drivers and sign up as riders. And that's great. Their primary business is just building and maintaining the app. They don't own any vehicles. They don't themselves provide any rides or anything like that. Yeah, you could argue that what we're doing is outside of their normal business. It could be argued. But I don't think that's how the law is going to interpret it. They're going to look at it and say, well, your business is connecting riders and drivers, so therefore the drivers are part of your app by extension or something like that. That's my personal opinion on how that's going to go down. The next one, C. The person is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as that involved in the work performed. So basically what they just said here is in the same nature, and nature is where it's going to get you. Because the app is targeted towards connecting riders and drivers as a driver, you are in the same nature of business. So again, it's a little bit of a gray area, but you could stretch that out and make an argument. So you're now defined as an employee. How does that affect you? What does that do? Let's talk about that for a bit. Here's what I feel you can expect from this. Limited or no tax deductions. You are now an employee, not an independent contractor, so therefore you no longer get the same type of tax deductions as you would have before. Minimum wage and possibly losing your tips. Well, guess what? The rideshare companies technically only have to pay you minimum wage. There's nothing to say they have to give you $20, $30 an hour. Now, that being said, they need to keep the cost down for the riders, so instead of making riders feel like they have to give you a tip, they may now just eliminate the tip feature altogether. Have fun losing your tips. Have fun making minimum wage. Because if you do 5 rides at $10 each, you may only get $8. So if you did 5 rides in an hour, you're like, oh, $50 an hour. Nope, you get $8, $42 going right over to the rideshare company. Alrighty then. So basically, you gave 1 ride and you didn't even get the full amount for that. You made 8 out of the $10 on ride 1, and then all the other rides you basically just did for free. So hopefully you're good with $8 an hour. Now, how does that affect your driving? You're like, well, I can just drive more and make it up. No, you can't. Let's say that you're in an area that only has about 100,000 hours available of drive time. There are 10,000 drivers in that general area. Of that, and again, we're talking about consistent driving. I'm like, if you were to drive straight forward, there's 100,000 hours. There's 10,000 drivers in your general area. That means you have to shear that. So now you're going to have sheared hours. That means there's a pool of 100,000 hours, 10,000 drivers in your whole general area. Because we all know that you might drive for 15 minutes and have a 20-minute gap, but we're combining all of this. You get 10 hours a week. You're now only working 10 hours a week. But hey, that's cool because you get health insurance too, don't you? Nope. Because they can limit your driving. You're now an employee. So as an employee, they may say you can't work more than 30 hours, but you're still only getting 10 anyways because you got to share the hours. But maximum at 30 hours, your app is deactivated. Yeah. They don't have to give you insurance because you're part-time. So let me know how that insurance worked out for you. Get your own. Oh wait, you only make $8 an hour. And of course, changing because you're now defined as an employee, change to licensing and stricter vehicle requirements. So to reduce their costs, they could up the vehicle requirements, saying, well, it's now commercial as an employee. You're not an independent contractor anymore. So you have to have a car that is no more than 5 years old, has to be these brands or whatever, and that's it. So now what? Don't forget about the licensing, because now that you're technically an employee and not an independent contractor, you may have to go out and get a hack license and a medallion, and you may be defined as a taxi service at that point. So you're no longer an independent contractor, you're no longer a rideshare driver, you're a taxi driver. Oh, wow. How's that AB5 working out for you now? But let me go a step further. You're like, but that's fine, because you know what? I run Amazon Flex, I run Grubhub, I do Uber, I do Lyft. You're like, you know, I got all these other apps, so I can make the money up and do. No, you can't. No, you can't. You're an employee. Now you get to sign a non-compete agreement. How's that working out for you? As an employee, in order to continue driving for any of those services, you may have to file a non-compete agreement. That means you're limited to one of those apps. You get to drive for one of those apps. You better pick the right one too, because if they decide, well, you know what, we want to lower the hours even more and whatnot, guess what? There's nothing you can do about it, because they're going to give you hours based on work available. So you really need to look at what AB5 is going to do. Now, some people have said that they think some of these companies are just going to stop giving services in California altogether, and I don't think that's the case. Some people say, well, they can just leave California, it's one state. The problem with that is it sets a precedence. So rather than leaving California, what I think they're going to do is what I just talked about. They're going to make things harder to drive. That way the ones that do drive, they can maximize their potential, but they're still only going to pay you minimum wage. So you're also going to put a lot more wear and tear on your vehicles, and they're going to set you up as a part-time employee, and you're going to have to work their availability. So they're going to probably come at you and say, you know what, as an employee, you know, we need your availability. You know, they're going to say, okay, we have your availability, you're available, we got 10 hours a week for you. Boom. You can drive 5 hours on Monday and 5 hours on Thursday from these hours, and that's what you're allowed to sign on, and that's what you're allowed to sign off on, and that's what you get. You don't show up, you don't like it, deactivated, because you are an employee and you didn't show up for work. Health insurance, again, like I said, they only have to cut you off at 30 hours and boom, you're done. You don't even get health insurance because you're part-time. They don't have to supply it. So that's something else you need to look at. Tax deductions? No, you're being paid an hourly wage and you're being compensated for the work performed now. So therefore, you don't get those same tax deductions as you used to get. And my guess is that they're probably going to say, oh, you know, we don't necessarily approve this or approve that. Like, you can't water, candy, blah, blah, blah. If you do it, it's on your own, but we don't support it. It's not something we require. So therefore, it's no longer a business expense because you're an employee and it's not a company approved item. So again, now that liability too, if you were to pick up, say, a bag of nuts, and somebody had some in your car and had an allergic reaction, before that would have been an independent contractor issue, and you would have had probably a little bit more legal protection and whatnot because you were an individual. Even as a business, you know, you still had some insurance and whatnot. However, now, because that gets passed on to an actual employer, they're probably not going to approve it. So I honestly think AB5 is a very bad way to go, and I've been saying that from the beginning. Yes, we want more rights, but we want rights with numbers. And I'm going to try to hold that up here so you can kind of get a little bit of that. We wanted rights that gave us a fair wage. 75 cents a mile at 10 miles was $7.50. By the time you added in the time, the pickup, the base fare, the companies could have still been profitable, but it kept this out. So let's talk about that for a second. Why aren't these companies profitable? And you don't want to know what I think the biggest thing is? They're pushing for autonomous vehicles. They're a technology company. They want to get the autonomous vehicles on the road because if they can create the technology to do it, they can eliminate drivers. Then it don't even matter. Now, yeah, that could be 10, 20, 30 years down the road, but the fact is that if they can get that technology first, then hey, guess what? It's over for us. But, here's the funny thing about it, is even talking to riders, there's two things that really pop out at me. The first, riders have even said, even if rideshare was at the same or only a few bucks more than a taxi, a lot of people would still take it because of the convenience. That's the first thing. A lot of people don't like taking taxis anymore because they call the taxi. I had a rider tell me they called 3 different taxi companies and all 3 went to voicemail. Not a single one answered. So they popped out their phone, clicked the app, and I was there in about 5 minutes to pick them up. And they were just like, whoa, that was quick. After calling 3 cab companies, all they had to do was press a button on their app. They didn't have to try to search numbers. You didn't have to go into Google, look up what companies were nearby, and then call them up and things like that. And then they say, oh, we can be there in a half hour. And they really show up an hour and a half later, if they show up at all. They come in there, they have their car, it's run down and duct taped together. And you don't even know if that car is going to make it to your destination. Where with rideshare, they pull out their phone, boop, app goes out, oh, driver alerted, on their way. You get there, and here's the other cool thing. They don't have to wait outside waiting for that taxi. They're like, oh, taxi's going to be here in 30 minutes, I better get outside. They know if I get held up, it'll tell them, they'll notify, when I get close by. When I'm within about probably a quarter mile, so about like, 0.2 I feel is about when my phone goes and says, rider notified. Guess what? They can stay inside out of the rain waiting for me and then be right out. Boom, done. They come out, they get in the car, and we go. They know what kind of vehicle to watch for. They know when I'm close by, and so forth and so forth. So the app feature really makes up a lot of the reasons people use rideshare, which is surprising since the cab companies, originally, when they created this technology, they were trying to sell it to the cab companies, who turned it down. They said it was dumb and it will never work. Guess again. So the only people, taxi companies and, taxi commissions and everything, they'll argue all day long on why they hate ride shares. But yet, they're the idiots that turned down the technology when they had the opportunity to make their services better. So, I don't know. And then the vehicle requirements, vehicle inspections, and things like that too play a part. So when people get in the vehicle, they know it's going to make it to the destination. But, hey, that's just my opinion. So, that's why I say when we start talking about AB5, we need to look at the full picture. Yeah, it's great. You're an employee. You're going to get protections. You're going to get benefits, things like that. Well, all you're really going to get is stricter requirements. You're going to get less pay because you're only going to probably make minimum wage. Your hours are going to be restricted. You're going to have to go by a schedule. You're not going to be able to drive for multiple platforms now because you're going to probably have to find sign a non-compete agreement, which is going to say, hey, you can't sign up with any other company. And if you break that contract, so some of you are thinking, well, whatever, I'll sign it and I'll go drive for the other company. Think again, because they can fine you. If they find out that you are driving for another company, they can turn around and say you're in violation of a non-compete agreement contract, and therefore you're going to be fined liquidated damages liquidated damages in the amount of, let's say, $2,000. You can't even afford your health insurance. You're only getting $80 a week. So good luck paying that off. Again, AB5 is not the solution. The solution would have been defining gig workers as that drive in rideshare is creating a definition of that under the IRS. That would have been the solution. The best solution would have been defining a rideshare company or platform as, you know, as whatever, an independent thing. We're independent contractors, but if you provide that service, these app companies have to pay a minimum of etc. to their drivers. That would have been the solution. Push for a minimum per mile wage. $1. $1 would have been great. $1 per mile minimum. Then let the states adjust theirs. So if I drive Minneapolis, St. Paul, even though I live in Wisconsin, they could have said, hey, you know what? The minimum for the United States is $1 per mile. Minnesota could have came in, said, you know what though? Cost of living is higher in our state. $1.25. Wisconsin could have came in and said, you know what? $1.15 because our cost of living isn't as much. So there's no reason why we needed AB5. California could have sit there and been like, you know what? $1 is federal, but to compensate drivers fairly because of the amount of money that drivers have to put out in the state of California, $1.50 or $2 per mile. So they could have competed with what taxis charge. But the funny thing is a lot of what's happening right now and trying to get us defined as employees is doing nothing more than hurting rideshare drivers, and it is going to only benefit the cab companies because now the rideshare is going to be harder to drive for. So more drivers are going to have to quit or only do it like, oh, I can drive on the weekends. So they're going to lose a lot of riders because there's not going to be a lot of drivers anymore. So again, what money you could have made up is going to dwindle out. So for those of you that voted for AB5, good luck with that one. But I want to know what you guys think. So tell me what your thoughts are on this, all the information that I put here. And like I said, I'm going to try to, I can't guarantee it'll end up in here, but I'm going to try to get my number sheet uploaded into the video. And I want to hear about what you guys think. Leave it in the comments. What kind of numbers do you think are fair? I want you to look at 3 points of views. I want you to understand what a driver needs to make to have a reasonable living. Now, the numbers I gave were strictly minimum starting points. Something that we can start a discussion off of. So, I want to know what you think you need reasonably to live. Take into consideration rent, food, utilities, gas, car depreciation and maintenance, setting aside money for taxes. Maybe you want to have some extra money because you want to be able to take your kids to the carnival or things like that. So what do you need to have a reasonable life? So I want you to look at that from the driver's side of point. Then take a point at the rider. If a taxi cab is going to be a $30 ride, but we're going to charge $50, we're no longer offering that same benefit. Now, if it's $30 and we can offer $33, maybe even $35 for that same ride, there's still a competing factor because of the convenience that we offer. So take a look at the numbers that we would have to also charge to pay those drivers in order to still keep riders, and then consider the rideshare company. I know everybody hates the rideshare companies, but understand that they're providing that platform for us, so we need to take into consideration what they need to make to be able to pay their overhead, their staff, and still maintain a working platform for us to go off of. So looking at those 3 points, what do you need to make as a driver? Still allowing for profitability of the rideshare company, and yet keeping it a reasonable cost for the rider to still want to use that service. Let me know those numbers below. Also, let me know what you think about the AB5. And just to kind of reiterate those points, limited or no tax deductions, minimum wage, possibly losing your tips, having to go by a schedule including reduced or share pooled hours available, change to possible licensing, so you may need to get a commercial license of some sort, and stricter vehicle requirements, a non-compete agreements, and possibly fined for terms of violation. Let me know what you guys think about though. Let me know what you think, because like I said, you may only get limited to one company. If you're driving for Lyft and Grubhub, they may say, well, that's a competing factor because it's a driving platform. So let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what your thoughts are on that, and comment below. And don't forget to subscribe. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button and the little bell to be notified when I post new videos, because as things are going on, I do this full time, so I'm trying to work more time into doing research. Like I said, I actually read through the entire bill, so I don't just come on here and talk about it. I actually wanted to read through it and start to think about what could probably happen. So I am working on creating more content. I know it's slow, I know I'm new, but I'm here to try to get this information to you guys. So like I said, feel free to subscribe, leave your comments below, and I will reply. And if you do have any more questions, you can always go to the website www.rideshare-.com, and I have all kinds of information that I'm trying to get going there too. So thank you, and stay safe on the road.